The following program will make you want to grow things, especially tonight, and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board by telephone, dial 905-725-1907. Toll free in North America, 1-866-905-7325. Worldwide, 1-866-656-5477. Send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to this episode of Down the Garden Path, where each week we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I'm Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 11 years. It is currently a design-only business here east of the GTA in Ontario, Canada, for all of our listeners. And with me is my co-host, Matthew Dressing. Hello, Matthew.
Good evening, Joanne. Good evening, Gary. Thank you, everyone. I'm Matthew Dressing, horticulturist, landscape designer, and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. As always, we welcome your questions via social media and emails.
That's right. And you can email us today at instudio101@gmail.com. And we do like to remind everybody that we want to thank you for joining us here on Down the Garden Path each week. But remember that you can also subscribe to our Down the Garden Path podcast on your favorite podcast app. And if you can't tune in or if you miss an episode live, you can always download it. Or it automatically, if you subscribed, right, it'll automatically download to your phone.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. So tonight is one of those, yes, call in. And when you mentioned about research shows, right? You did a lot of research.
This is a big research show. And if you're wondering, as even Gary alluded in the intro, tonight's topic, well, you know what? Whether you're a lifelong gardener or just beginning your journey, there's one plant we've all talked about.
That's right.
Recently, cannabis. So tonight, Joanne and I are going to take a closer look at this controversial plant. What is it? How is it grown? And what laws and regulations are facing the Canadians with the cannabis's recent legalization?
That's right. So I'm sure our U.S. listeners are, it's legal in some states. So we have U.S. listeners as well, and worldwide listeners. So learn a little bit about it.
That's it. And you know what? I didn't actually do any research into which states specifically are it is legal in. So, you know what? If you want to write in studio101@gmail.com.
I'm sure the ones where it's legal, they know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing.
I was thinking just to tell us.
Oh, that's right. That's right. For sure.
And let us know.
That's right. I'm Colorado and California. I know those two.
Oh,
there you go. Just from TV. So there you go. But we do. Well, do we want to do a disclaimer first, like just to say that we're not saying we're experts.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Matthew's been great at doing a ton of research for us and kind of come up with, the gardening aspect of how to grow it, as well as some of the regulations. So, so we're excited to, and, we've been asked about this before on the show, and so we just thought, it's a holiday Monday. Hey, it's a holiday Monday here in Canada. So let's talk about cannabis.
Let's relax.
That's right.
Holiday. Yes.
But since it's a holiday, it's a big gardening weekend. And it was a big, how was the garden center this weekend?
We
segue to our regular segment before we get talking about cannabis.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a Victoria long weekend. Garden centers. It's our average last frost date in a few days, but this is the big weekend where all the garden centers are hopping. So lots of plants, lots of selection, trees, shrubs, annuals. Pretty much everything is out, ready to go. People.
And how was it? Was it
busy?
Busier than usual? Busier, same?
It's pretty. I think it was a little lower as far as traffic, just because of the weird weather.
Yeah, it's been weird.
Today it was beautiful a little bit, and then the wind moved in.
Yep.
The nursery got flat, but the day before it was beautiful. It was like 20 degrees. That was all out in force there. Friday was again just like today, so it was kind of hit and miss, but it was a really good steady weekend. I think it's going to extend out into the beginning of this week and into next weekend as well. People I think are still a little leery about those nighttime temperatures,
right? And they should be,
right, and rightfully so. Exactly.
Yes.
And our state's still 4 days away, so
yeah.
So the garden center this is the time. If you haven't found it or you're waiting for something special, now is the time to go out and look, because it may not be available again.
Right, especially vegetables.
Herbs
and vegetables.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
How about your garden?
Yeah, not too much is happening. I have to say. Well, I shouldn't say that. There is finally things are leafing out. Like their buds are starting to turn into little leaves. It just seemed so slow on many things. Yeah. I do even see I've got a fern leaf peony. Oddly enough, it's coming up first with a bulb with a
bud.
Thank you.
Okay,
that's the word, bud. Compared to my other peonies. So I would say it's nice to see. I've actually been taking pictures kind of like once a week or once every 2 weeks, just to kind of document, and I can look at the dates of like, oh my goodness, it's slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but it is coming along, and so nothing too exciting to write home about, unfortunately. But
it'll come though.
It will. It definitely will.
Yeah.
I think, we literally still don't seem to have 2 warm days strung together.
No,
right?
No, not at all.
I mean, that's been the biggest thing. So I know I've had some people kind of email me and comment on my website or on my blogs and stuff about hydrangeas. There's no sign yet. And Rosa Sharon's, there's no sign yet. Like, everybody's kind of concerned about their plants.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, some of those are late to begin with.
Right.
And, we just haven't had the warmth.
Yeah, exactly.
So
2 warm days, let alone 2 days where the sun shines.
I know.
All together.
I know. So yeah. So that's what's happening, and but I'm looking forward to today's show. I'm looking forward to learning from. So thank you for doing this research.
Well, you're welcome, and I'm still learning myself as well. So definitely, if you're at home and you're listening and you'd like to join the conversation, definitely write us at in Studio 101.
Yeah, you can even call in. We even have, because nobody's on the phone, right? So we can even we haven't had a caller yet. So somebody wants to surprise us, you can call us at 905-725-1907, right, Gary?
That's the local, yes.
That's the local number.
That's right. And toll free, of course, anywhere in North America is 1-866-905-7325.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, so that's great. So how do you want to start? Like, I know there's lots of information, right?
So much information. Okay, so why don't we just talk about just even start about the history of cannabis because it's this big taboo thing, right?
Used to be anyway.
Or
but
used to be.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of got this image in their head of what it is and what others are doing with it,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, always check out, there's lots of several documentaries and articles out there about cannabis. I was reading articles from the Globe and Mail, TVO did a video on it. So there's lots of information out there. So hopefully we're going to kind of bring some of that to you. So just a little bit about the plant and even just in history of like Canada, because it's legal now, but it was legal before. So it was legal.
Oh, really?
Right. And then it became out of legal again, or was illegal. So cannabis has been around for 65 million years. It's one of the first plants cultivated by mankind.
Really?
So we've been using it and growing it for over 10,000 years.
Wow.
So like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a new invention.
It is nothing new. It's right up there with like corn and wheat. Like,
okay.
We've had it for a long time. Native, a lot of people, there were some mixed things about it, but basically just kind of that Central Asia area. But I found more specifically, it's native to the valleys of the Hindu Kush Mountains. And that mountain range is along the borders of Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Okay.
So it's native in those valleys, kind of doing its wild thing. People had found it, cultivated it, found out for its different properties. They found that the THC, the psychoactive one that we grow for the THC, kind of moved out into Asia and went south into India. And then the hemp fiber one, as it became more and more known, tended to move north into, France, Germany, England.
More into Europe.
Right, more into Europe proper.
Okay.
So in the 1800s in Canada, we actually grew it here and was once subsidized and legal to help expand Britain's textile industry.
Yes, because it can be woven into like a fabric.
Right. There are hundreds, like thousands and thousands of uses as for this plant. In the 1900s, it was common item at places like Sears.
That's so funny.
Isn't that weird to pick? I
Yeah.
picture Sears,
Like Sears
as this,
catalog?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. They'd have ads, and there'd be this cannabis jar and stuff like that. But in 1922, women's rights activist Emily Murphy declared it was a new menace. And so with no debate in Parliament in Canada, became one of the first countries to criminalize it in 1923.
Okay.
Moving into 1973, there were proposals by a royal commission to legalize it again after, of course, the 1960s. We all know what went through there. And it was turned down due to just a sheer lack of political will to move it through Parliament and get it legalized. And then October 17th, 2018, that's the big day, Canada became one of the first G7 countries to legalize cannabis.
That's right. And that was after the so October was kind of after the growing season, which is why we thought this would be a good topic, since it's kind of like anybody that now that we can legally grow it yourself, we can kind of talk about it at the beginning of the growing season.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
That's why our timing is what it is.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of people growing it outside. There's a lot of people who are also and will only ever grow it inside as well. So we'll take a look at kind of a couple touches on, growing it inside versus outside.
Okay.
And that whole, you can't grow cannabis outside, or et cetera, et cetera.
We got a good listener here listening. I love that. That's the best message ever.
That's funny.
That is great, Howard. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Dude, so Howard writes in, holy cow, now this is a topic. Great stuff. Hell with my lawn.
Yes,
you,
we always joke about, if you're a good listener or a regular listener, we always joke about people always, no matter what we're talking about, they have a question about their lawn.
That's
so
it.
Yes, you're right, Howard. So
we're going to talk about a different type of grass this evening.
That's right. It's a different type of grass. So welcome to the show, everyone. Again, instudio101@gmail.com. So I had some questions. I don't know if this is jumping out of your order, but just as far as growing it. I'd like.
No, we can
for a
totally
curveball?
talk
Okay.
about the plants. Let me just shift the 10 pages of research. Here we go.
Putting them on the spot, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I just think so. I guess we'll jump around. I feel like now I'm interviewing you, right? As in the sense of, are we growing it from seed? Are we getting plants? I know that's a common question, right?
Yeah, the main dispensaries, as far as my research showed, is that you are going to be buying the seeds, or you're going to be buying the product that it's already grown and harvested and ready for consumption.
Okay, so there's nowhere you can buy the plant.
As far as I could find out legally, no.
Okay.
No. So Canada was going to do like the brick and mortar stores. Each province was going to have brick and mortar stores according to their own rules and regulations.
Right.
They've all been allowed. The provincial governments have been able to tweak all of them. But Ontario decided not to have a brick and mortar store. So for us, it's all online.
Okay.
Or you can buy it online, or the Ontario government, and I forget what the SC just jumps out of my head. They will be the wholesaler and the single legal supplier in the province, as well as the other provinces, and each province will have their own, to authorized dealers.
Right.
So far it's seed and product, but it may evolve into plants later.
Now, I thought there were some, I think Ontario was delayed, kind of the brick and mortar stores, but I think they're coming on board slowly.
And I kind of found a couple things, and then that's where I kind of fell into the authorized dealer thing.
Right.
So it's not going to be like it's going to be regulated by the Gaming Commission and the Liquor Board and everything, but you can become an authorized, go through all the hoops and the application and everything, and you can become a distributor. But there's only a sole supplier. So I didn't get to see anything after that to see if there is going to be like an LCBO, for example, the Liquor Board that's our liquor store here in Ontario.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, that's a good question. So as far as the seeds go, so then we're having to get them. Like garden centers are not supplying the seeds.
Yes.
Right. So we're going to wherever you buy the finished product, you can also purchase the seeds for growing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So So garden centers. That's working in a garden center. That's a huge
I know. How many
question,
times a day are you getting asked that question?
Like every other day.
Yeah.
So just tying in. Yeah. Jazz writes in. Do you know if garden stores here in Canada are selling any cannabis supplies to help us grow properly? So Jazz, we're going to talk about different ways to grow indoors versus outdoors.
Excellent.
So we'll elaborate on that. But just to talk to the garden center point, a lot of them are really not taking a stance quite so far. The people are, now that it is legal, they're much more open about it. The thing in the garden centers was, well, it's January and I'm growing some tomatoes. And so that was kind of the big joke. But they're a lot more open about it. Are there specific supplies and sections opening in garden centers at the moment? Not particularly, no. I haven't seen or heard of anybody who is doing it. Right. But there are a lot of common garden center items that are out there that you can be using to grow this as well. Yeah. And we know too, as we were saying, it's native to a mountainous region out in Europe, in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So, I mean, this is a plant that's grown in the ground. So we've taken it and cultivated it and come up with all these other scientific or not so scientific ways of bettering it and doing all that kind of stuff. Okay. So we'll get into that in a bit for sure.
Okay. All right. So there will not be a cannabis growing section in your local garden center quite yet, Jazz.
Right. You'll see lots of like the light sections will start to, like the indoor lighting will expand and things like that. But you probably aren't going to see any cannabis branded merchandise or POP material anytime soon.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And I mean, it is still early, like considering it's just been legal since October.
Right.
And this is our beginning of the growing season. All the stuff that you've ordered that it's coming into stores now was probably ordered last June and July, right?
Yeah.
So, or give or take.
Exactly. And just like you said, like this is so new back, like, I mean, we're 6, maybe 7 months in at most. So things are still being worked out. And just like we said at the beginning, we are by no means any experts at all. We're just kind of just exploring the topic with you.
That's right. So. And because we've been getting questions. And so we just thought we would, like we like to do, right? Make it as easy for you. And we'll do the research for you. So that's why you listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
did you have, as you were saying, interviewing?
Yeah, I know. Well, let's start with the seed. So if we purchase seed from the proper source, what is now we're in May. What is the germination, or how do we go about germinating it and turning it into a plant?
Yeah, so you can start the seeds as you would other seeds,
Right.
basically in a good growing medium. You need the bright light and you need the moisture. It's just kind of like starting indoor seeds.
Okay.
They're pretty
And
quick
you're starting them indoors right now still.
Yeah, you can start them indoors. You can grow them completely indoors, and there are different varieties, etc. But starting the seeds just kind of as seeds,
Okay.
basically, like you would other seeds. Fairly quick to moderate to germinate, again, depending on the species or the variety. And then it's going to kind of go hardening off and going outside like seeds as well. And then they do require, as they grow up, certain growing conditions like the other plants.
Okay. And I've heard it compared to growing a tomato plant from seed. Is that the truth, or is that just
it's kind of, you get the better lead time you can. But I mean, there's some varieties that will you can grow that are like auto blooming, so you can get into where you have to wait 3 to 5 months, like to certain varieties of tomatoes, long growing and harvest times, whereas 3 to 5 months, or you can have certain varieties that will grow and harvest within 8 weeks.
Okay.
So it can be very quick or it can be very slow.
Right. Okay. Much like vegetables, right?
Right, much like vegetables, right?
Yeah.
You can have the smaller ones quickly,
Mm-hmm.
like lettuces and things. You're just going to grow it, harvest it, and away you go.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there anything we need to do to the seed? Sometimes other vegetable seeds, you need to soak them, you need to stratification,
Nothing
that kind of thing.
I could find in my research.
Okay.
No. So if again, listeners, in studio101@gmail.com, write in, because we're learning here with you. But
That's right.
I couldn't find anything.
Okay.
You didn't have to like vernalize it or freeze it. It is a hardy annual, they're saying. So it is zone 7 to 11.
Okay.
So it won't survive our winters. But yeah, I couldn't find anything else that was like
Excellent. So there's
freezing or-
nothing you really need to do to the seed. So it's
Yeah.
really just planting it and keeping it warm and watered and
and keeping her growing.
okay. And once it gets outside?
Yeah, so it is a full sun to growing outdoors, full sun to part sun plant. So it does require a minimum of 5 to 6 consecutive daylight hours.
Okay.
So full sun, we know, is 6+ hours.
Right.
4 to 6 is kind of that part sun. But it is best protected from the hottest part of the days, with temperatures going above 30 degrees Celsius. It doesn't like it super, super hot.
Really?
So the heat will kind of shut it down. And that kind of makes sense where it's native. It's kind of in the mountain ranges. It's protected.
Probably shaded by other plants, that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. The mountains kind of tempering the little growing valleys. So it is best to grow in around 24 degrees and 30 degrees Celsius. But again, it is a cool hardy annual. Like a hardy annual, zone 7 to 11. So 12, just under 13 degrees kind of thing, 12 and a half, 12.8. That's where she starts to kind of get a little chilled. She'll start to shut down and can be damaged and stunted by those lower temperatures.
Okay.
So it is a warm season
Plant.
annual.
But not too warm. So would it do better
Right.
than in a mixed garden bed versus like let's say a vegetable bed that
Where you have like 12
12
hours
of sun, like
kind
the
of thing.
tomato. So that's where it kind of differs from the tomato and the peppers, right? That love the heat.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I kind of picture it like some of those like half sun begonias, where they'll like that morning sun and that warmth, and they'll get that growth, but then they can get really kind of scorched or turned off, or start to kind of look a
their
little
edges
funny.
the edges of the petals and the edges of the leaves, right?
Yeah, they're not quite perfect. They kind of start to perform a little less when you get all that heat going on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how about if it's in the vegetables with other vegetables with shading them?
Yeah, kind of
then
like
your
the Three
tomatoes
Sisters
are
kind
gonna
of
face
thing.
funny. But
Yeah. Yeah. So I picture kind of like that Three Sisters kind of thing, the
Okay.
shading and the corn shading someone else, but getting
Yeah.
lots of sun. Yeah, that kind of situation would work too.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Any special fertilizer or anything that it needs, different to the vegetables or the same?
Yes. So now I've put all my pages in.
That's okay. Well, why don't we get to a listener question?
Oh, there we go.
I'm making a mad jump around here with my questions. So Julie's written in, and she says, "Hi, Joanne and Matthew. Love the topic tonight. Even though I'm not a user or grower of weed, this topic is very important to us that are non-users to not be in the dark, so to speak, about marijuana." I agree, Julie. That's kind of how I felt too. Because people are because it is a plant, and people think I know, and that's what we wanted to research, right? Because we're getting asked, and So thank you. I'm glad you like it because that's kind of why we're doing it. So I'm sure it's the first show, but I'm sure it might not be our last.
Yes.
That's right.
Well, and exactly. Just because it's still evolving, right?
That's
so
right.
We're going to come back to it. I'm sure we'll start to see lots of stuff about it.
That's right. And Joyce has written in, better to grow indoors or outdoors? Thank you. Yep. Joyce, we're going to get to that. So we're talking outdoors right now.
Yeah.
And then we'll see if Matt has an opinion on which is better. But I'm sure that just depends on the season and that type of thing. But so outside we can grow it, but it does need a little bit of hot afternoon shading. So that's good to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you were asking about basically the nutritional requirements. Yeah. So kind of like other plants in the growing season, bi-weekly applications of water-soluble fertilizers are actually preferred over slow release.
Oh, okay.
So something liquid.
Okay.
We do want to keep it fertilized because you can lead into stunted growth, and whereas over-fertilization can lead to nutrient lockout. So kind of where, if you over-fertilize things, as we know with other plants, those nutrients, those heavier nutrients get bonded to the humus or the clay and won't be released or dissolved easily.
Okay.
So you can over kind of salt the soil, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll also cause hindrances in appropriate pH and nutrient uptake and other issues like that.
Okay.
But as far as the growing and specific nutrients, the difference between the different stages within its life cycle.
Oh, okay. See, this is where he likes it because he gets all sciencey now.
Yeah,
so he's going sciencey now, guys. Hold on.
Okay,
Matt, go.
So when it's young.
Okay. Define young, Matt.
Yeah, so when it's like just a seedling. And starting to kind of grow up within the first number of weeks.
Okay.
Minimal nutrition when young if planted in the optimal soil conditions. And the soil should be evenly moist, well drained, slightly acidic, and high in organic matter. So large amounts of compost and manures, worm castings are what you want. And then the ground pH, if you have it in the ground, should be 6 to 6.8, which most plants like it slightly acidic anyways, right? That's 6.2 to 6.5 kind of range. So we're in normally. But you should have a quality soilless potting mixture with those other things, composts and things like that. It can be grown in just like a high quality potting mix.
Okay, so if it's not grown in the ground or if you're growing it outside in a pot, it can also be in a potting mix.
Right. Just make sure you do buy a quality potting mix.
Okay.
So don't go to it's no frills and it's a cheap $1 bag.
Not to mention any names, but okay.
Not to mention any names.
Or last year's potting mix that's been in the garage, right?
That's starting to kind of clump and break down.
Okay.
Right. So minimal nutrition when she's young. Often recommended just at a quarter strength if you're gonna feed it.
Okay.
When it does want some fertilizer as it starts to age, you can get halfway through whichever variety or cultivar you have. That you kind of get into the midway season of its growing season, you're going to go for high nitrogen, low phosphorus, and potassium. And that's when it's going to be in its vegetative state. So kind of like perennials and annuals type thing, right? We want a higher nitrogen, so it's like a 10-4-4, a 9-4-5, for example. And then as it gets into the flowering stage, like our annuals and perennials and things, they're going to draw on more phosphorus because it takes a lot to stitch those ovaries in a flower, and that's what we use phosphorus for. So lower nitrogen when she's starting to bud.
Okay.
And we're going to get high phosphorus and potassium in the flowering stage. So for example.
So what's the timing from that young to when it starts to bud? Do we know?
To the
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, and again, no. So it depends on like if
The
you're
variety.
doing the variety, right? So
Okay.
whereas something might go like I say a fall flowering perennial, right?
Right.
And I'm just going to use an example. So we can do just like a basic that 10-4-4 kind of thing. When she's vegetative, she's growing, she's fattening up. It's kind of summer. We're just kind of bi-weekly feeding her. But then in the fall, we're going to see the plant's going to go into its flowering sequence. It's going to start to drop more phosphorus. Its nutritional requirements will change.
Okay.
And there's going to look for that phosphorus and that potassium to build the flowers and give you the show that we want.
Okay. So the mid-season weed fertilize more like a bigger number or full strength?
Right. So mid to end of season or approaching those bloom periods,
Yes.
we're going to start to switch into that flowering fertilizer.
Okay.
Hydrangea might be an example.
Okay.
Right? If she's not really flowering and she's just doing nitrogen and other things, if we want a really big show, it's something like you would start to give it your higher phosphorus when the flowers come in.
Okay. And in the number, remind me, that's the middle number, right? For flower?
Right.
With the three, the fertilizers come with 3 numbers.
Right. Yeah. So let's just quickly do that.
Okay.
So you have 3 numbers on the fertilizers. So it's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And so they're elementals. You'll also see them called NPK.
That's right.
Right. So there's a little rhyme too. So the nitrogen deals with green growth, lush, above the ground, green kind of stuff. The phosphorus is for the roots primarily, but it plays a very large part in stitching the ovaries and flowers.
Okay.
And so we feed high phosphorus to flowering items to produce those seed heads and those flower heads.
Okay.
And then the last one, potassium, or the K, is going to be basically your immune system. So disease resistance, heat resistance, drought resistance, but also the efficiency of the plant's ability to uptake nutrients
Okay.
and overall cell function. So just like it literally fortifies the cell walls kind of thing. So the rhyme to remember when you look at the numbers is up, down, all around.
Okay.
Right. And that's kind of tells you which each of the numbers do.
We went from science to rhymes.
Yes, yeah.
There you go. Well, no, that's good. I mean, and this does apply to all your vegetables or anything else you're growing, right?
Right. Yeah.
So for our listeners who aren't interested in growing this, that still
it's
applies.
still relevant.
Yeah, still relevant, definitely, for your vegetables and herbs and other plants.
Yeah.
So really fall, it is like a tomato and pepper and that kind of thing in the sense that it is a later in the season harvest, whether it's early season or late season, depends on the variety.
Right.
But it's not like lettuce where you could harvest it every week kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not an every week kind of thing. Yeah. So I mean, the shortest ones that I were able to find were, and they changed one of the name, like the ruderalis, or some of them they're calling them the now sativas. They can have some shorter bloom periods where the harvest is like 8 weeks.
Okay.
So you're minimally looking at it like 2 months.
Right.
So 2 to 3 months is early, and then you're moving out into like the 5-month period.
Okay.
Right. And then we are going to cut or harvest those flowers, those buds, and then we're going to dry them as well.
Okay.
And we can get into all of that as well.
All right. All right. Did you want to leave? Yeah.
Here we
Liam's
go.
Message.
Liam. Okay. So Liam writes in, "Hi, Matthew. You seem like quite the expert." That's all in caps, just so for our listeners. "Are you trying to tell us something?" Wink, wink. Hilarious. I love the show tonight. There are 7 of us out here in my backyard for a Victoria Day barbecue, and we are drinking beer. ... and smoking weed.
There you go. So now we're going to tell you how to grow it then, Liam.
There you go. Yeah. Or Liam, maybe you guys have some comments for the show.
That's right. That's right. You guys can
just so your joke. Yeah. No, no.
And Oscar's written in a very interesting radio show tonight. This is the 4th time I gave a listen to you in the past 2 months. Thank you, Oscar.
Yes.
Nice content with your other shows, but this one is A1. Thanks. Wow. Good to know. Everybody's happy that we're doing this topic.
I think our monthly, month in the garden topic just needs to become like cannabis in the garden.
Oh, really? Is that that's what they're
August.
telling us? For sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Liam, and thank you, Oscar, very much for tuning in and writing in as well. So
you've got a lot to cover. Oh my goodness!
We do.
Look
We
at
got
that.
pages. This is like a 3-week show.
He's done a lot of research, everyone.
That's it. So Joyce was asking, growing indoors or outdoors?
Right.
Which is better?
Right.
You can definitely grow it outdoors.
Okay.
I have heard some people I know in some of the research, I find that my research shows that when you grow hydroponically, that tends to be where people are crossing and doing the strains. It's a very controlled, almost scientific propagation
Okay.
kind of environment. They can grow strains, but also that you can really maximize indoors the THC. And the THC is the chemical in the plant, or one of the 113 chemicals we found useful in the plant, that gives us that psychedelic effect.
All right.
So people are tend to be after that one, and they tend to say that is what the best way to get your THC content is by a specific strain that just naturally produces that much.
Okay.
Or you're hydroponically growing it and creating it to do that. Yeah, or in doing it, breeding it to do that kind of thing.
Okay.
So overall, the plant-wise, sorry, I kind of digressed there. You can grow them both ways.
Okay.
You can grow them both ways.
So there's not really, to answer Joyce's question, it's not right.
Exactly. You want to do it outside? Run for it. Want to do it inside? That's cool too. There is a lot of equipment, and there are a lot more specialty fertilizers and venting systems. All sorts of technology that you're going to get into inside. Remember, the plant does smell.
Sounds like a bigger commitment.
It is a bigger commitment.
For sure.
Correct. And kind of like our show, right? Just kind of working with nature, low maintenance, kind of serving that.
I mean, what about our show?
Yeah.
Yes, no, so the lower maintenance, easier way to go. Right. Because if we do go back to the legal aspect of it, no one can really start a farm in their backyard, right? Legally in Canada, you were allowed 4 plants per household.
Household,
not per person in the house.
Yes. And that was, that's one thing that a lot of people were kind of thinking about and getting confused about and things like that.
Yes.
Well, how many can I have? And what if I do this? And
yes.
Yeah. So just quickly going for Joyce and anybody else listening. Yeah. So there's lots of different types of systems. Just choose a system that which fits your budget, because there's so many different. There's a situation, your level of comfort in growing it. You have to find the one that's the most appealing to you. So they're all viable, but each system will have their own champions and critics and pros and cons, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Lots of different systems: ebb and flows, water culture, aeroponic, hydroponic, wick systems, et cetera, et cetera. When you get into the hydroponic mediums, that's where you're looking at like grow stones, hydrocorn, rock wool, floral oasis, river rock. There's
because hydroponically, that's like soilless, right? You're not growing in soil now.
Right. You're not growing in soil. You're growing in like an artificial medium that basically the roots can spread, but there's usually a liquid in hydroponics or some other medium that's being introduced into that area for the plant to derive its nutrients from.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the different nutrient solutions, that could be a whole show, honestly, on hydroponic nutrient solutions, not only for this plant, but just in general.
Okay.
But
we haven't done a hydroponic show, so that could be like a good winter show.
Yes.
Right? Because that's the time to do it.
That's the time to get all going and start. Exactly.
Okay, everybody let us know if you want more information on hydroponics, because there's lots of things you can grow.
Oh, yeah, you could
hydroponically,
grow all your veggies. You could grow, all sorts of crops.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's good to know. So outside, you can grow it in your vegetable garden. You can also grow it in a pot outside. Pot in the pot. Yes.
I liked when you were talking about your fern leaf peony. What's that thing you, the bud?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So. Phil writes in, hey, Joanne and Matt. Long-time listener here. Matt, what passion. Wow. Love this topic, even though I don't partake. Would pot plants help my crappy lawn?
There you go, Phil.
You might get more people volunteering to take care of it.
There you go.
Free labor in a way. But
yeah.
Thank you, Phil. That's funny.
Thanks funny. Thanks, everybody. So we grow it in a pot or grow it in your vegetable garden.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know we can only get seeds from a legal source,
right?
And only allow 4 plants. Now, are there they only selling you 4 seeds, or you know what I mean? Like, what are the chances of all 4 germinating? That type of thing. Like, how does that?
Yeah.
From, I've professed how I'm not good at starting seeds, any type of seeds. So yes.
I've never personally bought them.
Okay.
I've heard of a couple situations where they are giving you just 4 seeds, and others do like a seed pack. They are giving you a number of seeds because, like anything, right?
Yes.
You cannot, they're not all viable. There's no way on earth to tell.
Right.
So I've kind of seen both, where they're just giving you 4 seeds or just a few seeds, and then you're getting a small pack where there's 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that. But yeah, you can only legally have
4 plants. Yeah.
4
So if
plants
6 germinate, then you got to find a buddy to take the other 2.
Yeah,
kind
take
of
the
thing.
other 2. Exactly.
Yeah.
Or when you're growing vegetables, pick the strongest 4 and
Yeah.
this is probably, you'd never hear me say this, but kill the other 2.
Right.
Yeah, people are like, what? No.
Yeah.
But yeah, or remove
Survival
the
of
other 2.
the fittest kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. Okay. And is there any concern? So if you were putting it in your vegetable garden, is there any does it inhibit your tomatoes from growing, or your tomatoes inhibit the cannabis from growing? Is there any,
Outside of regular, just plant competition for
Right.
sunlight and nutrients kind of thing,
Okay.
nothing that I was able to find. So
Okay.
yeah, the cannabis isn't knocking out the tomatoes or poisoning
Yeah.
something like a black walnut or.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no concern of plant interactions and stuff like that. So
Right.
so that's good to know.
Yeah. Just if you are growing them outside, and where did I have it here? They are prone to a few pests and diseases.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you about that. So are they easy to grow? So they still have pests and disease.
So fairly easy, but you do get a lot of the common ones. So mealybugs, fungus gnats, spider mites, aphids, root aphids even. Some of these are going to, the fungus gnats, you're going to find more indoors or where
Right.
there's lots
Yeah,
of
probably when you're
moisture.
starting the seeds. Yeah.
Yeah. And then powdery mildew, root rot, leaf septoria, fusarium wilt, some different funguses and other leaf diseases and soil diseases that can really move in after a while.
Okay.
And then again, just kind of going back to the vegetable analogy, I'd probably be rotating it or changing the soil after a certain amount of time just
Right.
to ensure if it's a crop that you're really going to get into.
Okay. And anything that's available, any type of organic insecticide or whatever, anything you use on vegetables, I'm sure, right? There's nothing, of course, going to be labeled, for pot use only
Yeah.
or cannabis only,
Cannabis.
right? So, but for the most part, we kind of let, the meal, aphids, ladybugs, introduce, you want a healthy garden,
Yeah.
regardless of what you're growing. So encouraging beneficial insects, that type
Exactly.
of thing. So if you have aphids, regardless of what they're on, ladybugs, praying mantis, that type of thing.
Right.
We've had NIC, Natural Insect Control, on the
Yeah.
show before. That's in probably last year, I think. You can
Yeah,
search for
probably
that on the
about now.
website or on your podcast app. NIC, Natural Insect Control. They, you can purchase the praying mantis eggs, as well as the bags of or native, that's the key word there, native ladybugs that will help with, helping insects in your vegetable garden, in your garden, ornamental gardens.
Exactly. Yeah. Always use the least toxic method available.
That's right. That's right. And if a beneficial insect will do the job, then why mess with a spray and a chemical, even if it's organic? Yeah.
Now, I know that there are probably listeners who have grown it, and cool. And I can hear the people that I've talked to, getting to that final female bud.
Right.
That diseases can kind of be hampering.
Okay.
And they won't mess around. They won't let a thing develop.
Okay.
And they will go just
Yeah.
right to the best possible.
Okay. Come harvest time.
Right, or even during its growth period. It's
Okay.
I've got this. No, I'm going full out. This isn't going to affect it. This is the strongest I can use. Let's knock this now.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Okay.
Just as we're talking about plants and the growing of them, we know that, or maybe you don't, the female plant. So there is a male plant and there is a female plant.
Okay.
And we don't want the males. Boys are bad.
Okay. How do we know? Okay.
I have that somewhere.
Okay.
I will find that out. But yeah, the females, you want to get rid of the males before the females. And this is another reason I find that you end up getting with more seeds as well too.
Okay, because you could have a male and female seeds. Like you can't tell from the seeds.
Yes, as far as I can see, I could not tell what the seeds were, or if there was a way for a male or female. And if someone has found a way that the male or female seed does have a thing in Studio 101, I'd love to know at gmail.com.
Because even as it starts as a plant, is it obvious?
I believe it was. Yeah, I think it was something with the leaf shape when they were younger.
Okay.
That I found.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely need a second show.
Yes. Yeah. So you want to kill the males because the females, when they get to that budding stage and they're unfertilized, they tend to get into producing bigger buds out of like a plant sexual frustration.
Okay.
They're trying to maximize the surface area in which they can produce seeds.
Okay.
Right.
All right. And Ruth, so just to jump to the email here, Ruth has written in. She just tuned in, so as she can tell, we are talking about cannabis today. And she said, "I'm not sure if this question has already been answered already, but how did cannabis get the name marijuana?" Thank you.
That is a fantastic question, Ruth.
And do we know the answer?
And I do not.
Okay, there you go.
got me. Thank you very much, Ruth.
Yes.
That was something that I don't think I actually did come across.
Yeah.
In my
like
my
is
research.
Cannabis the botanical name?
Right. So that's going to
okay.
be your genus name. Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll
All
be
right.
Cannabis sativa or
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So no, that's a great one, Ruth. I'm going to find that out.
Yeah.
Actually.
So thank you, Ruth, for that question. And like we always say, we're as good as our research, and we're not. We did have a disclaimer at the beginning of the show to say that we're not experts, but that Matt did a ton of research with on this topic that we've had some questions about, and we wanted to bring you a show.
Yes. Does anybody out there know how marijuana came into cannabis?
That's right, because you can call us too.
You can call us.
But you can
Explain
write
it.
in at instudio101@gmail.com. So let's talk a little bit. So you were just mentioning about the buds, and so we want to only have female plants. and then it's a seed. So again, I know nothing. So it's a seed, pod, buds that are growing, and that's what we're harvesting.
Right. So
Okay.
it's the flower bud basically.
Okay.
We don't want it to
We don't want it to flower.
Right.
Okay.
And the parts of the flower that I have the name here somewhere.
Okay. So I put him on the spot once
Yes,
again.
you're just.
I
I got all these
know.
pages. If you could see it,
I know. Yes,
all
I can
understand.
post a
So
picture.
I apologize. There you go. But yeah, so as the parts of the sexual parts, the stamens and everything
Yes.
come out, they get to a point where they start to change color.
Okay.
And depending on what you're going to harvest it for, the higher THC or the lower, like the CBD or CBN, as they grow and they change color and they become almost like a crystalline kind of coating on them. They kind of start to go gray and crystalline as these organelles develop.
I don't know what you mean by crystalline.
Like it literally becomes like a white crystal kind of look.
Oh,
like
okay,
it almost
okay.
becomes like a fuzzy looking like organic frost.
Oh, okay.
Kind of
okay.
forming. And so then when you pick it at that certain point as those buds develop, they will open up and they'll determine kind of depending on again on what you have, how much of those chemical compounds are present.
But you want to pick it before it flowers.
Right. Yes, because you don't want to be eating or smoking the seeds.
Right.
Yeah. If you were going to move on and you were hybridizing and growing and you wanted to produce your own seeds for your own strains because you found one that gives you something, then you probably are going to move forward. And you're more likely going to be doing clones of the plant. So basically taking cuttings of that plant that gave you that effect or that gives you a specific effect.
Okay.
Sean.
Oh, that's good, Sean. Got some great feedback. Yeah. Do you want to read it?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was reading as you were talking. Yeah, Sean. Just wanted to say that this show was very informative to us that are active cannabis growers. I have watched and listened to several other TV and radio shows that were not as detailed in explaining some of the ins and outs of cannabis production. Very well done. I am now sold on your radio show.
Well,
thank you, Sean.
very much, Sean. And we, like we said at the beginning, we're not experts, but we're just trying to research it. And Matt's done a great job of putting together all this information.
I did some research for you here.
Did you?
It
You've got the
says
scoop.
The term originally spelled various ways, marijuana,
Oh,
originated in Mexican Spanish for cannabis.
Oh.
So it was started down in Mexico, marijuana, and probably by Cheech and Chong. No, I just made that up. But yeah, it's a Mexican name for cannabis in that particular plant.
Okay, well, there you go, Ruth. I hope
That's
you're still
fantastic.
listening, and that's interesting to know.
Man, I love your show, man.
And there's Cheech and Chong, or one of you.
Man, I love you, man. It's education.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, you.
And that makes sense, that explanation. At one point, in most of the marijuana or cannabis grown was from Mexico.
Okay.
And coming up through for recreational use.
Right,
That
right.
is where
Before
most
it
of
was legal.
Before it was legal.
Yeah, that's where you're getting it from.
Right, and then we
Okay.
started seeing how easy it was to grow, and
Mhm.
it kind of spread from there at one
Okay.
point. But yeah, there you go. So there you go, Ruth.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
there you go. And Sean,
helps.
if you have any tips for us, then please email us too if there's something that we are getting wrong, or if your experience growing it, let us know.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the second show, because there's lots of information, I'll have to grow one this year
Yeah.
just to experience it.
Mhm. Yeah.
and just kind of really.
I wonder how much information is when you order a plant seeds, the seed catalogs and all that stuff. There's so much information.
Mhm.
When we even had Nikki's on about all the different new, unique vegetables, that type of thing. So I wonder how much information is when you're ordering the seed.
Right.
There is, as far as the chemical composition as well as the grow. I'm sure they must have the grow time, like the, grow time from germination to harvest, that type of thing. So, yeah.
And that was one of the things that the Canadian government was really keen about, was with the controlling of it and getting it away from the youth, basically, is the
Right.
main kind of the thing of the Cannabis Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting away from youth, but they liked that when they distributed it, they could know the strength and the chemical composition of the products and how, the varieties and all
Okay.
that kind of detailed information. They'll know what is being released into the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked a bit about when to harvest. So when the seeds the buds just start to crystallize, like you said.
Mhm.
Then what? I'm just playing like totally dumb.
yeah. So when it gets to, depending on what you're going to use it for or what the effect you want,
Right.
You're going to harvest it, but you do have to cure it. So you do have to give it 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the type, and you're going to cure it. So basically, you're like hanging it upside down, and you're going through that drying out period.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've seen some varieties where it's closer to like 6 or 8 weeks where they're getting it really cured. But if
Kind
you
of like
let
you do
it,
garlic, right? You have to do
Yeah,
that.
right.
After you harvest the garlic in July, you have to, hang them upside down and.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, and kind of let them harden off, do their thing, and then they're ready to go through the next cycle.
Okay.
So curing it, you don't want it super dry, and that was some of the words or fears and experiences with the mail order, the new stuff coming out of the Canadian government, was that it was super, super dry. Like they produced it and they cured it, but then it's sitting somewhere, and it's just not as fresh.
Okay.
So you do kind of start to lose some of that freshness and that quality of it. And that's where I think people are going to still be looking at their street or their friends for just that fresher, higher quality product. Yeah. Let's just
Yeah.
call a spade a spade.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah. So they're going to be improving it, and it's a journey, right?
Right,
So,
for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you're-
And it's something, I'm sure there's a lot of people who've never grown vegetables before who, it's hit or miss to
Yeah.
try and figure out how to do it, how to grow tomatoes and peppers and
Hanging
cucumbers.
garlic.
Garlic even. So it's just another thing to kind of experiment with, and it's not as straightforward. It does depend on, there's a lot of factors, and weather's going to be a factor.
Yep.
So, I'm guessing much like our vegetables, if it's a cool summer or not a lot of, or too much rain, it's going to affect the harvest just like it will for our tomatoes and peppers and things like that, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It just like them, it has its own cycle and preferences and requirements to meet to get to optimal. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Now, as far as the regulations on 4 plants, I'm assuming like the regulations probably didn't say, only has to be in your backyard. Although I think if they're in the front yard, then you risk somebody taking it on you or something like that, right? So I'm sure most people
Yeah.
out there are growing it in their backyard.
In their backyard, probably
Yes.
fenced off.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So mostly are anywhere on the home in like
Okay.
the household or I think the technical term in the act was house dwelling.
Okay.
Yeah, or a resident dwelling, that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
anywhere at the home or on that property,
Mhm.
you can grow up to 4 plants.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can't have 4 in and 4 out kind of deal. You can't have 8 altogether, just to kind of play with
okay.
the rule. Yeah.
Right. And did they say who was checking? Like, who's got time to
Well,
wander around
and-
and check? Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're kind of thinking that the idea is that if the populace has a legitimate regulated source to elect from, that they can trust and grow it from there, that they're more likely to follow the regulations of the
Okay.
act versus going out and doing it in an illicit way
Right.
of finding those plants or growing those plants, etc.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of just
Yeah.
due diligence and human nature and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of social agreement type thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once the plant has cured, storing it like just in mason jars or
yeah, kind of.
baggies. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Help
I've
me
seen
out,
them all.
everybody. I have no idea.
That's it. Same here. But yeah, storaging kind of a dry, cool place. You don't want it to get too moist or humid. It can go moldy, and then you can spoil it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long will it last? Like, if your summer harvest gets you through till Christmas, do we know? I guess
Not
it
very
depends.
long.
Not
No.
very long. Yeah, I guess it depends,
Just
eh?
kidding. Yeah.
No, we won't pick on our listeners. Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the length, I only saw, and I found mixed reviews on this. Some people are saying anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. Others are saying like 2 to 2.5 months. And then it's all depending on how they're storing and their humidity control. And of course the jokes like, really, how long do you think we're going to have it?
Right.
Or
right.
how much do you have it?
Yes.
Yeah. And they're saying that those 4 plants, I just forget how much, but 4 plants will provide someone quite enough of product to
okay.
last them for a couple months
Okay.
if stored
Properly
correctly and
stuff.
harvested correctly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah. It's just like, how long is that bar of dark chocolate going to last me, right?
Yeah,
Same
before-
kind of idea.
Yeah. Everything has an expiry.
That's right, for sure. Well, this was really, for our first show on the topic. I think it's a deep topic. I'd love to
Very.
learn more about the products, the CBD. We're seeing more and more products out there available as well. So I think that would be a great show in the future. If our listeners have any other questions, please email us. You can email us here at instudio101@gmail.com. You can reach both of us at our websites for our businesses. So mine is down to earth with the number 2.ca. I
Yep.
almost said .com.
Oh.
I don't email myself, but so that's my website. So all my contact information is there. You can be found at
naturalaffinitydesigns.ca, and
Excellent.
all my stuff is there too.
Yeah, and we're always open to whatever, we love getting the feedback on what kind of shows you want us to put out there. We're happy that you like this one, and we definitely would love to follow up with another one. I can see if, and the hydroponics one, and maybe as we get closer to fall and our growing season changes, learning what to grow, even vegetables and lettuce and herbs and spinach and stuff like that inside the house. I think there are more and more, it's becoming availability too, like even Best Buy is selling little hydroponic kits and stuff like that.
Aerodomes and all sorts of different stuff.
So I think that'd be a great topic. So please drop us a line. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And what other type of, whether it's cannabis related or not, what other type of show you would like to listen to.
Exactly. And if you have any ideas for a part 2 to this show, how we would expand, like what do the seeds look like when they come? How many do we really get? And maybe I'll grow one, and we can expand on all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely write us at our websites. And you can always reach us here at instudio101@gmail.com. Our wonderful producer, Gary, will always get your mail and
That's right.
let us know.
That's right. Well, we thank everybody for listening. I think it was a good show. I can't, once again, time just flies, doesn't it? Flies.
Bye.
Yeah.
So Howard, Jazz, Julie, Joyce, Liam, Oscar, Ruth, Sean, Gary, and I think Peter wrote in there. I think I missed one of the names.
Oh, okay.
But we thank you very much for writing in
Oscar.
and tuning in every week to Down the Garden Path. Thank you for joining us here on this Victoria Day long weekend or holiday if you're here in Canada. Hello to our U.S. Listeners. And
yeah, that's great. And we look forward to, thank you again for joining us here on the Down the Garden Path here on Reality Radio 101.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.